Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of our Divine Lilith Masterclass healing session. Today is going to be very much rooted around our root chakra, our Kundalini energy, our trauma healing, and how the ways that trauma can block our root chakra. Now, the root chakra is very much looked at, especially in yogi practices and Indian culture, Indian history, as the formless entity of the divine feminine. So it's the formless aspect of the divine feminine, the way that it's embodied. And this kind of ties into a little bit of like the Adam, Eve, and Lilith story that we talked about last time. So the snake being the divine feminine, the Lilith energy, or the empowered energy of Lilith. So when we're talking about the snake in Indian cultures is depicted as being the coiled up energy, the low up energy, the last chakra, the first chakra, sorry. And that's depicted as the red type of energy. Now, when these things are blocked, they definitely show up in the world in many different forms. So this can be fear and trauma, anger, rage, anxiety, depression, poor eating, poor sleeping, feeling dysregulated. This can be just simply feeling emotionally or physically disconnected. So feeling like you're a little out of your body or feeling like you don't have much control. This is very much linked to trauma. Okay, most things that block chakras are linked to traumatic experiences or growing up in a traumatic experience. Now, this can just be something as simple that dysregulates you or makes you disconnected from your body, like not getting your needs met as a child, having neglect or any situations like that can definitely disconnect you from your body because you're being told to not listen to your body, not focus on what your body is trying to tell you, like if you're hungry or tired or sad or angry or you know, you need a hug or something like that. And instead of feeling empowered to be like, hey, this is my need, can you meet this need? You are very much made to feel bad for having the need in the first place. Because here's the thing, people, especially like in adulthood, not as a child, in adulthood, people get the decision whether or not they want to meet your need, and that's okay. So if you came up to someone and said, hey, I really need a hug, and they're like, I don't feel comfortable about that, that's them choosing not to meet your need, and that's okay. Because they're also meeting their needs, and they're listening to their body and saying that makes them feel uncomfortable. That's totally okay. Now, the way that we need to focus on these type of aspects is mainly coming from a place of non-dominance. So while in the Adam and Lilith story, it was very much she was taking revenge, she had resentment, she had anger and rage and, you know, envy and things like that that made her react instead of respond. Now, when you go through cognitive therapy or you go through trauma therapy, you definitely hear that, to react or respond. React is when you are triggered, and instead of taking a conscious thought and removing yourself from the situation and going, okay, if I'm to look at their actions and make a decision about this in the most loving way possible to myself and to them, how would I respond to this? Would I respond with hateful words and comparing them to other people, or abuse or threats, or you know, dominating the situation, trying to get them to do what I want them to do, and then this situation will just all magically disappear? Or are you going to go for more of like a flight response? Wait, maybe you'll run away from a situation, you'll avoid a conversation, you'll avoid taking accountability for your own actions or your own thoughts or your own wants or your own needs, and self-sacrifice instead. I have done both. So we're not going to sit here and act like people don't make mistakes and people don't learn and people don't have trauma and people don't realize this. We are very much made to look at the people in our life as a mirror to ourselves. So what I mean by non-dominance is making sure that you are not looking at it from a traumatized state of mind, that you're trying to have control over another person to make you feel like You have control over you. Let's say that someone gets triggered by something you say, and then they tell you that you have to do this and do that, when really you don't. But in order for them to feel safe and in control because of a need they didn't get met as a child, or a need that was rejected or abused, like, it doesn't really matter how it was affected, it's just that it is affected now. They respond from a triggered point of view and feel the only way they can feel control in themselves is if you react in the way they want you to react, or you do exactly how you want them to, they want you to act. Like, it's not too hard to look at, like, and then you can look at this person and say, okay, they're trying to control me, which means they have no control over themselves. They're trying to get me to do this and be emotionally detached from my own body because they're emotionally detached from their body. They can't feel that sense of safety because they lacked that somewhere in their childhood or in a really terrible traumatic experience. Okay, the ways that we can kind of cultivate and awaken and unblock the Kundalini and the root chakra energy is very much through tantric practices. Like, a lot of our new age, new mindset, new world, even pagan philosophies, they all kind of tie in together. Like, a lot of pagan stuff and a lot of new age and then a lot of yogi tantric stuff, they all kind of base around the same thing. Self-reflection, journaling, moving your body, so getting the energy flowing in your body, breath work, meditation, actual yoga, like, controlled breathing, controlled movements, grounding yourself. Now, this doesn't just have to be go put your feet in the dirt. This does not mean that you have to do some big extravagant thing out in the forest. Like, not everyone's a dirt type of person. Grounding can also look like you being fully 100% present in every single aspect of that moment that you're in. So whether that's taking a shower, doing the dishes, folding the laundry, even if it's something boring as shit or something you consider as boring, it can even be art. Art is one of my forms of meditation that I do because it gets me in a flow state of mind. I am fully 100% present with every single aspect of my life when that is going on. I am keeping an ear out for my kids, but at the same time, I am fully engrossed in everything that's happening. I'm engrossed in the way I'm breathing, the way I'm moving, the way that I need to move the paintbrush, the colors, the lighting, everything that's going on is a grounding exercise, and it's a way for me to reconnect into my brain and my body and my emotions. So going with the flow and visualizations and things like that, all of those are very good things, like manifesting and stuff like that. But when you're in this traumatized, triggered state of mind and you do this too often, like if you notice the pattern, that's why journaling and self-reflecting are very good. Because, and I would suggest doing more than just 1 or 2 pages. I would suggest getting the time, like half an hour or something, and writing out as much as you bloody can until you feel like all of it's gone. Because sometimes when we're disconnected from all of it, we're actually disconnected from our crown chakra too, which is disconnecting us from our higher self. This does not have to be a separate entity, but this is the higher self, your spiritual self, that is disconnected from your physical reality. And when you're disconnected from it, then, you're going to act in your lowest chakra as possible because you're in a traumatized state of mind. When I sit there and I journal, I try write at least 6 pages, because at least I can look and read back on it and go, well, I was this emotion when I started, and then I went through 3 different emotions, and I ended up at a positive emotion by the end of it, which was one of acceptance or release or love or understanding. Like, there was a higher emotion at the end of it. You raise your chakra level when you realize that you can take yourself out of that state of mind without feeling triggered, without having to actually go out and do something physically, especially if you're not able to leave your space at that time. Try and at least seclude yourself for a little bit of time and try write it all out, all the way to the end, until you can find that positive emotion. It's not about making yourself feel it, but it will eventually lead to a positive emotion. What type of things can we reflect on in our everyday life that would block these type of things? Now, for a Kundalini awakening, or kind of being forced back into that awakening stage, usually it's some form of big trauma, like someone dying in front of you, or a near-death experience yourself. Sometimes it can be dreams, sometimes it can be, you know, taking a good look at yourself in the mirror and being able to self-reflect. A lot of the times when you're stuck in that zone and your root chakra has been blocked for so long that you can't actually self-reflect without projection, or you can't self-reflect without being triggered and forced into that lower state of, like, lower state of mind, lower vibration. So when you're in that lower state of mind or lower vibration, or you're stuck in a trauma response, you're not going to be able to self-reflect. You're not even going to be able to do mirror gazing and be like, okay, where are my shadows hiding? Now, to be able to kind of, there's two ways to kind of go about a Kundalini awakening when you, I guess, when you aren't in a trauma, like when you're not brought into one through dreams or like prophecy or trauma, like a massive near-death experience. So there's things they do with the active response or the passive response. The passive response is not very well known, I suppose. I guess that's taken more in yogi practices. Other people may have a different idea of this, but from my research, it's seen very much in yogi, Indian, Middle Eastern type of practices, where someone who is basically a yogi master, or someone who has gone through all the crap and learned how to heal it and become a master of themselves, takes on this person as a student, so that this person can watch them, watch how they act, watch how they handle situations, watch them on like every level of being, so that they can understand, okay, this is the modality that he took, this is the modality that they took, so that they can work through this without getting triggered. Or if they do get triggered, they have control and empowerment in order to be able to work through it with this person, or leave this person, or let go of this person lovingly, without feeling all that anger and resentment and distrust and dysregulation that you do when your chakra is blocked. The more active approach, which is what is widely seen, is when you're kind of at that state of being able to self-reflect. You're able to sit there and write a list of all the shadows that you have. Now, this is my list of all the shadows that I either have, or that I'm healing through, or that I have had in the past. So, we can do something like self-sacrificing. Self-sacrificing is when you over-prioritize other people's. You sacrifice your own emotions for another person. You sacrifice your own being for another person. You sacrifice your own safety for another person. And while this may look like a victim mentality, this is usually a manipulation tactic, which is why it's a shadow. Because here's the thing, you're not one. First, if you aren't aware of it, it's definitely a manipulation tactic. It's just an unconscious one. When you make it conscious, you get to have a choice of, am I going to choose to handle the shame and guilt of not self-sacrificing in order to make this person happy? Am I going to not self-sacrifice, like not take care of myself, not take care of my needs and wants, to give this person what they need or want? Like the other description that I just did before, someone comes up and says, hey, I want a hug. Are you going to go, oh, okay, and like sacrifice everything that makes you comfortable and that makes you feel safe and that makes you like feel like your needs and wants are considered? Or are you going to go, oh no, sorry, I don't do that, and maybe make that person like go, oh, whatever, like there's something wrong with you, you're stuck up, you're this, you're that. Like, it's fine, you're allowed to hurt other people's feelings, but you're not allowed to hurt other people's feelings like forcefully. It's about non-dominance. You're not trying to control this person and tell them what they can and cannot do. You're trying to tell them that what you're going to do, what you're going to allow. That's what having a boundary is. There's a difference between having rules like, if you give me a hug, I'm going to go and break your Xbox. That's a rule. That's a rule where it's like, okay, there's an ultimatum that does not really affect, that does not help either of us, and it does not come from a place of love. If you go, okay, if you give me a hug, I'm not going to feel safe, which means I'm going to distance myself from you, and I know that may upset you, but this is what I'm doing to keep myself safe. You get to make a decision about that however you like, but you do not get to come into my space and touch my body without my consent. That's a boundary. Plain and simple. And people will not like it. People will feel very uncomfortable because you are mirroring their unhealed behavior back to them. You're mirroring that you are being made to feel uncomfortable by not self-sacrificing for another person. And the way that this is manipulation is only if, well, it's even if you are conscious about it. If you consciously sacrifice your own needs, you are manipulating this person into believing that this is who you actually are, when you're not. And while it may be a low tier of manipulation, like you're not doing it to hurt this person, you're actually doing it to avoid hurting people. It may seem justifiable, but it's really not. Because here's the thing, is that you will eventually feel anger and resentment towards this person. You will feel injustice towards this person because they don't care about your needs. Because you're giving them the image that this is who you are, and this is what you like, and this is what you'll accept. Okay, so a lot of these things can really be taken on in a lot of different ways, and I am going to be moving on with this because we've done like 16 minutes more, 5. We've done about 17 minutes of this, so the next lot that I'm going to be doing is really how to bring these tantric practices with Kundalini energy and practice like how to do this while still feeling empowerment and still standing up for your needs, and kind of integrating the darker aspects of like divine Lilith healing into a more balanced position, so that you don't have to kind of feel anger and resentment for standing up for your needs. But we're also going to go a little bit down the other history sides, so maybe a bit more Middle Eastern, maybe a bit more Indian, maybe a bit more Celtic traditions, and where these things kind of played out in history as well. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that. Lots of love.